Great. Is the crowd gonna be able to hear me when I start talking?
On Zoom?
Are these on?
Oh, no, this.
Hello? Oh, they're on.
Testing. Is that good? Okay. Hi, Jen. Thank you. Okay. So we're going to spend about the first 35,
35, 40. I think we'll most likely hit 40.
presentation. Then we're going into quadrant breakout groups. And we're going to do that for about 10, 15 minutes. Will you let us know when we're at 38? Yeah. 30. Yep.
So he goes last. So after.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. We have one presenter that the one at 30 minutes is a remote presenter.
Yeah, he's right there. Wait,
Okay.
can you talk to. Well, maybe. I don't think Elliot can see him actually. I think he turned his cam off. The audio guy back there, he's on Zoom
With
with
Elliot.
Elliot.
To
Well,
give Elliot like
yeah.
a wrap it up.
Yeah, because he's
Signal.
the one.
Yeah, I can hear y'all. So
Elliot.
yeah, so I'll yeah I'll make sure to wrap it up. And yeah, no worries.
Hello?
Oh, you're gonna have to speak way up.
Oh. Oh, okay. Oh, there it is. Hey, everyone. Thank you for coming to our session today on how to start your own legal kiosk program to bridge the digital divide. I'm just going to give a quick introduction of all the panelists here today before we dive into our programs. So, my name is Laura Steinbach. I am the Legal Kiosk Practice Area Lead at A2J Tech, and here today I have with me Dory Rappaport. She's the ED of Justice North, and I also have Miss Ariel Clemmer. She is the ED of 603 Legal Aid, and she helped launch the legal kiosk program for WNE School of Law. And I also have with us virtually on the top right corner right there, I have Elliot Fontanet. He's the Special Projects Managing Attorney of Texas Legal Services Center. All right, so before we dive into the rest of the presentation, I just wanted to give you guys a quick roadmap of what to expect from this session, because we're gonna handle things a bit differently. So the first part, I'm gonna address what are legal kiosks, why we need them, and where are they located, just for anyone who's new to this concept. And additionally, I'm gonna pass the mic over to Dory, Ariel, and Elliot to discuss their legal kiosk programs, how they got it started, how they executed them, and their plans for the future. And towards the halfway point of our session, we're gonna do physical breakout groups. So if you're interested in starting your own legal kiosk program today, I encourage you to follow Miss Ariel. She has a pre-planning guide worksheet for those of you who are interested, and she can help walk you through those questions. And for those of you who are interested in outreach and the promotion of kiosks, the marketing component of the program, I highly encourage you to join Elliot. We're gonna take him off of the projector screen right there, and we're gonna give it to Aaron. He's right up here. And you can follow Aaron around, and you can listen in on Elliot that way. And Dory's gonna be handling the rural access to justice component of the kiosk, if that is something you're interested in. So definitely follow Dory. And I'll be handling the demonstration of a legal kiosk back there. We have a prototype right up there set up, so I'll be walking people through. So if you're interested in that, I'll be right over there. And finally, when we have about 10 minutes left of the session, we're gonna come back up here to answer any of your questions and discuss the lessons that you learned in your breakout sessions. Oh, sorry, we skipped a slide here. Okay. So first I'm gonna discuss what are legal kiosks, what you can do on them, why are they needed, and where are they located. So first of all, what a legal kiosk is essentially a lockdown Windows computer. It's a lockdown Windows computer. So think of what you can find in a public library, but it's geared towards legal resources. Think of it as a one-stop shop for anything legal. So if a pro se litigant needs to perform legal research, or if they need to file any court forms, stuff like that, attend remote hearings, etc., that's where you're gonna be able to do all that. And the way that our kiosk set up is the user interface is using a browser, and that's mainly to enable the user experience to be more seamless, since a lot of the legal resources that we have from our partner programs are links to other websites, especially their own legal resources. So when it's all in the same interface, it's easier for someone to navigate. And additionally, it's more accessible. It's very, very accessible compared to building on other platforms. So if you're able to build it out on a website, you can easily make a website accessible. And additionally, some other key features to note is attending virtual hearings, applying for legal help, browsing legal resources, and our kiosks also have a printer and scanner combination, so people are able to print out any documents that they need. And right now, we also have data tracking, and we're actually working with Minnesota and the other Minnesota partner organizations on building that feature out. And we also have accessibility software. We currently have NVDA, which is a screen reader, and we also have Magnifier, which allows users to zoom into text or web pages to help make reading easier. And we're working with Elliot and his team in Texas to improve our assistive technology offerings. So now that we know what they are, let's discuss why they are needed. As you may know, the Legal Kiosk project started about from the COVID-19 pandemic, and this honestly exacerbated the digital divide that you guys may have seen. And because everything went remote, including court hearings, people needed a public space that has stable access to internet for people to attend those hearings. And unfortunately, according to this Pew Research Center study from 2021, this digital divide is still persisting. As you can see here, 43% of low-income adults do not have access to home internet. 41% don't have access to a computer. However, the upside of this, though, is that 76% of low-income adults do have a smartphone. But what I want you guys to consider is, imagine trying to do legal research, drafting legal documents, and filling out an online intake form on your mobile phone. Imagine doing that on such a tiny screen. Personally, I needed 2 monitors in law school to even do my legal research, so I can only imagine how hard it is to do all of that on a mobile phone. Another thing I also wanted to highlight is, unless you have a printer at home, you're not going to be able to print out documents. So having a public space where you can do that for free of charge is already amazing. A lot of our kiosk partners, we encourage them to have free printing at the kiosk, and it's been working out great so far. So now I'm going to talk a bit more about the data. So we have a usage survey at the beginning of every session, and just to highlight some of the top use cases on the legal kiosk we have deployed out there, a lot of users report, about 34% of them report using legal kiosks solely for legal research alone. So that's finding legal information and searching resources. So people are using them for these services. And something that did shock me was the 18% of people are using it to print out documents. So that's amazing that these printers are being used. And something that I was also shocked by was that people are using it to also apply for legal aid. So if that is important to you guys, that you have an online intake form, I highly encourage you to either make it more mobile friendly or to consider updating it so that it is easier to use also on other platforms. And finally, the biggest use for this that we have seen still persisting from the pandemic is the use of it for video meetings. Oops. Thank you. All right. So talking a little bit more about the data, we're actually able to gather the application usage data from the current kiosk management software. And as you can see here, almost a little over 60% of users are using it for document work. So people are opening up Adobe, they're opening up Word, they're opening up Excel just to fill out whatever they need to do for their own cases and legal research. And about 30% of people are using it for video meetings. And for those of you that are interested in the operations component, that's users using it to figure out they're using it to figure out how to use the kiosk. We have little modules at the bottom of our interface, so if you guys are interested in that, I can pull them up at the demo over there. And we have about 1.57% of users using the current NVDA screen reader and magnifier tool. So now that we know the what and the why, I'm going to talk about the where. So we currently have them rolled out in Minnesota, Texas, Massachusetts, Michigan, Florida, North Dakota, and we're about to roll them out in Georgia. And we also have more on the horizon for Michigan as well as Arizona. We have a total of 296 kiosks that are online. We have over 6,000 sessions to date with an average of 225 sessions per month from last year alone. And as far as where you can find them, we have them located across courthouses, agencies, nonprofits, legal services organizations, libraries, and other community centers. So now that we know what they are, why they're there, and where you can find them, I'm going to pass it over to Dory to talk about the Minnesota Legal Kiosk Program.
Thanks, Laura. Hi, everyone. I'm Dory Rappaport. I'm the Executive Director of Justice North. Is this volume okay? Too much? Like it's good? Okay, great. It's hard to know when you're listening to yourself. So Justice North, I'm going to move to the next slide. There we go. So I'm going to talk about Minnesota. When you saw Laura's slide that showed you where all the kiosks are at, did you notice a saturation in Minnesota? We have a lot of kiosks, and so I just want to give you the context for how that happened. So as Laura was talking about, in 2020, pandemic set in, everything went virtual, and in Minnesota, courts went virtual, and I just want to note that in Minnesota, courts are still virtual in many ways, and it's going to be a permanent tool in how we operate going forward, which I can talk about another time. But that's important to know. And so courts went virtual, legal aids went virtual. We are a very large geographic area, and Justice North, for example, is 27,000 square miles. Most of that is quite rural. We have 5 offices. But it was a time in which it was impossible for people with limited tech equipment and limited access to internet to engage with us, to engage with the courts. And so the Minnesota programs decided we have to get together and do something. How are the communities that we serve going to access us and access the courts as we move into this sort of indefinite virtual reality? And so we did, and we decided to ask for CARES Act funding. We were fortunate to receive $3.5 million in CARES Act funding. So we created this technological infrastructure of kiosks, and just a little plug for Justice Buses and for Justice Buses in Minnesota. So the kiosks are hosted by 4 regional legal aid programs in Minnesota. We have a lot of legal aid programs in Minnesota. And the 4 that really are sort of the primary regional providers host a quadrant, essentially, of the legal kiosks. So I'm going to move to a slide that shows you a video of when this all began.
Many of the people in the communities we serve do not have broadband access, do not have technology, do not have the financial means or the transportation to secure access to technology, which in 2020 became the way that you access the legal system. Realizing this, we came up with a vision with our partners throughout the state to bring technology to community locations where our clients go for help, to be able to connect with them and to make sure that they were able to get to us to get legal help. We call this the Reach Justice Project.
The legal process can be so intimidating, so making it as easy and seamless and efficient as possible for people who are already stressed out about life is a huge, huge deal.
The kiosks are set up to allow people to easily self-navigate through an electronic interface to get to the best legal resource for them.
So when we were approached by Legal Aid to partner up and have these kiosks in our office, it was honestly a no-brainer. We've already worked a lot with Legal Aid. It was very easy to say yes. It's an amazing resource.
We recognize that the services that our partners provide are invaluable to the client communities we serve, and we work with them in a mutually beneficial way to provide this additional service for people at the kiosk sites to make sure that people can bridge the digital divide.
I think it's going to be a game changer for legal aid.
Many of the people in the communities we serve do not have broadband access, do not have technology, do not.
Thank you. And it really was a game changer. Right now, we have 253 legal kiosks across the state of Minnesota. You can see a map here that shows you, you know what, I actually want to encourage you to pull out your phones and go to the website, legalkiosk.org. And when you're there, feel free to just peruse around, but there's an option for you to find a kiosk. So that'll give you an idea of what it's like for any user to pop on to the website and figure out where a kiosk is best located to them. So we have 253 kiosks, but they're hosted at 215 community partner sites, such as public libraries, community centers, tribal courts, law libraries, homeless shelters. 85 are not on this public interface that you're hopefully looking at, because those are the types of host partners that can't hold out to the public that a kiosk is available to them. Best example of this is a domestic violence shelter. And so not everybody can come there to use the kiosk, but there are still many that are open to the public. So I'm not going to repeat a lot of what Laura said. She really told you more about the nuts and bolts of how the kiosks operate. And, you know, I just have to say, I was saying this to one of my colleagues this morning, I'm so glad that we have worked hard to ensure that legal kiosks are accessible to people of all abilities. And so we've highlighted the screen readers and different capabilities we have to ensure there is accessibility for hard of hearing and virtually impaired individuals. But we also have adjustable desks, adjustable chairs, adjustable stations for people of any ability to access the kiosks as well, which is something we were able to decide right at the beginning of this project. And just a couple interesting data points. The majority of people are coming to the kiosk to get legal information, but a lot of them are using those printer scanners. It is more rare than you would think for people to have a printer or a scanner available to them, and it is just a critical part of being able to engage in the justice system. So that's been a real important resource. And for us, in Minnesota, it's not just an ability to attend your Zoom court hearing if you have a Zoom court hearing, but it's your ability to meet with somebody face to face and engage in your process, because sometimes your court case isn't just about going to court. It might be a mediation. It might be just meeting with your lawyer and you don't have the transportation or the child care, or your lawyer's 2 hours from you. A kiosk can be in the places that we can't be. 27,000 square miles, 5 offices. We like to think that we're placing all of our kiosks everywhere we can't be in between, right? And so it's a huge rural access to justice tool. And, well, let me go back, sorry. I want to also emphasize the point that we have them pretty much split in Minnesota between urban and rural areas, a little more in urban areas, but the use, again, solidifying my point, is actually higher, slightly higher in rural areas. And the last point I want to make, Justice North received an LSC TIG grant to work on our next iteration of ensuring that the kiosks are the tool that we want to continue to invest in. And so we are doing sort of 2 prongs to help bring the kiosk to another level. One is improved data collection. So we have good data that we're sharing with you right now about how people are using the kiosks, but we want even more information. We love data. And so we're also working with Legal Services State Support in Minnesota to create step-by-step legal action guides for self-represented litigants. And those will be available through the kiosks. And we're so excited. I think substantively these areas are going to cover housing repairs, conciliation court, and consumer debt. And part of this project is also we're replicating what they've done in Michigan with the What's Next text model. So litigants can receive texts letting them know along their timelines when they need to do something next. So we're very excited about that. And that's it for Minnesota right now.
All right. I feel like I was fighting with somebody using the clicker. Hi, Ariel Klimmer. Again, so I started the Free Legal Kiosk Initiative when I was the director of the Center for Social Justice, which is at Western New England University School of Law in Western Massachusetts. I, 2 months ago, changed jobs. I'm now the ED at 603 Legal Aid in New Hampshire. But I'll be talking today as if I'm back in my old seat in Western Massachusetts with you. We developed a partnership, much like the other programs that you've heard, right around the start of the pandemic. Massachusetts courts closed down. We knew that people didn't have access, and I immediately applied for a grant from the Mass Mutual Foundation to establish what I then called fixed or mobile computer stations. And really, it was that simple of a concept. You know, we need to provide computers to people to get access to the court system. And then over time, as some devices became more available, we really drilled down on sort of what we could provide based on the legal information and knowledge that we had to provide the public user the best kind of legal access experience that they could. So we did a mapping exercise across the state. That's that little map that you see there to determine where we were going to pilot this. We only had funding for about 10 initial kiosks, so we wanted to make sure that they were in areas of highest need. We used as a proximity court data of all folks involved in small claims collection actions for the prior 2 years. That's what's mapped here, and then we drilled down on kind of highest need areas from there. We currently have, they have 13 across the state in a mix of libraries, community centers, and one at the actual Center for Social Justice itself. You might be curious about how robustly or leanly staffed these need to be. So this is the size of my team, included myself. We recently, just this year, in the sort of second iteration of the project, brought on a full-time Lead for America Digital Equity Fellow, and have always had a really important component of outreach and engagement. So we've had a community-based coordinator for that. And I was lucky enough to be situated in a law school, and so I had lots of law school volunteers, including 2 or 3 that were sort of full-time on the project, as much as a law student can be full-time. The team really helped me work on the outreach component of this, so I wanted to just highlight for you, and I got updated stats just the other day. So we've had about 1,000 one-to-one conversations by door knocking around the community in Greater Springfield. That has proven to be the best outreach impact that we've seen, and I'll show you in just a second what that looks like on the sort of usage slide. Some of those conversations were in Spanish, about 10%, and almost 4,000 doors knocked on, but many miles to go. This is an example of our kiosk interface, and so, as I said, we designed kind of a bespoke interface for Massachusetts using existing state-wide resources. And the reason why that was so helpful is because what we found is that people are primarily using the Massachusetts kiosks for finding free legal help and finding self-help legal resources. So when somebody clicks in, and you'll have a chance to see a live demo in a minute, but when somebody clicks in, for instance, on the first box here, they'll if somebody clicks Find Legal Help, they'll be directed to this resource, which is the Massachusetts Legal Resources Finder, which is a super helpful website to be linking to because it's pre-screened legal aid access information. So nobody's going to get a referral out of this source that they don't already sort of pre-screen qualify for, which was a really important component of our project. Some of the other options then are the self-help resources. We ended up dividing ours into court-involved resources and those for people that aren't yet court-involved, meaning you don't actually have a filed case. Court-based users can look up their court case, can file into a case, can work with the court's own access to justice system and do live chatting with clerks and all of those types of access possibilities. Under other resources, we have a basic legal information page for the state that we link to, and then, which is Mass Legal Help, and then some other social service type resources. So in terms of impact and metrics, from the 10 that we've had over the first year, we've had about 250 uses. Interestingly, 14% are returning, which we hope means that those users had a good experience and are coming back for more. Most of the people use the kiosk in the morning. I think this is just the morning, and when you add in noontime, it comes out to something like 70+%. That was important for us because especially during COVID times, libraries were not necessarily open a full day time schedule, so that's something that you might want to think about if you're doing some citing work. We only have had 4 video meetings in Massachusetts. So you saw the data before about the popularity of the video technology on the kiosk, maybe primarily in Minnesota. Even though Massachusetts has mostly gone back in person, but there are still some programs like small claims court is still virtual. And so we were surprised to see that we didn't have more video users on the kiosk. And in Massachusetts, they're primarily using the 2 other options. One cool aspect of our project is our Justice Bus. This is the Justice Bus along with my amazing law student volunteers. The bus goes out and about into the community and helps connect people where they're at with the legal kiosk technology. So we have the kiosk platform uploaded on a laptop, and we go out to table at community events, and that way we both let people know about it, but we also can run through the interface right there on the spot and get them into the queue. Yes.
How many of the people that actually used them were uninitiated, just walked into the senior center and saw the kiosk and started using it,
That's a good question. As opposed to, you mean finding it through like going to the website and getting connected to it?
Legal services to them saying, we have a kiosk if you want to go to it over there instead.
Right, so almost 100%. Yeah, almost 100% is sort of spontaneous usage, because we do have the same type of scheduling platform in Massachusetts that people can sort of pre-schedule themselves by finding a site, but for the most part, that's not happening, and they're just showing up at the library. Sounds like you have a legal problem. Guess what? We have a free legal kiosk here in the corner. Let me direct you over to that to be able to use it. That's a great question. Yep, everything is recorded. Every single time that the kiosk interface is used, it creates, a data entry in a massive spreadsheet that A2J Tech has helpfully compiled for us and pulled into a very user-friendly interface so that we can see the data of sort of all of those pieces, who's using them, how much. And so this might be sort of to your question. Well, what we're doing this year is we're calling it Kiosk 2.0, which is we're piloting this concept of whether the kiosk technology just on the laptop is enough, or just on your phone would be enough, or whether we need the whole computer station set up to bring people there. And so we're setting up at least 5 light versions that are going to be in public existing spaces, just a website interface, and then 5 sort of standard models with all of the accessibility features and all of the lockdown protections that those provides. There definitely are, pros and cons to each kind of environment, but we're going to do a test this year and see what that looks like. And with that, I think I'll pass it along to Elliot.
Hello, can y'all hear me?
Yep. We can hear you.
Okay. So, my name is Elliot Fontanet. I'm the Special Projects Managing Attorney with the Texas Legal Services Center. First, I'd just like to apologize that I can't be with y'all. Something really urgent came up, but I'm happy to be with y'all remotely. So we're going to talk about the Texas Legal Services Center Virtual Court Kiosk. This is a part of our overall initiative, the Virtual Court Access Project. Can you go to the next slide, please? So we actually came into the kiosk world a little bit later, sort of towards the waning parts of the pandemic. So we first were informed about this kiosk project in July of 2022. Our funder, the Texas Access to Justice Foundation, they sort of developed and approved the kiosk project. We agreed to work on it. Then in August to October 2022, we designed the project parameters in conjunction with TAJF. There was an expert, Mr. John Toll. Minnesota Legal Services, I cannot say how helpful Minnesota Legal Services in general just was. In fact, there's a person that no longer works there, Ms. Kelly Winsel, who was amazing, who really helped us launch the project, and A2J Tech helped as well as our staff that moderates Texas Law Help. By November of 2022, we hired A2J Tech and we started developing the hardware configuration for the kiosk and the user interface. We had the first kiosk delivered, the first 3 of them delivered in January of 2023. In early spring of 2023, they came online. And what we mean by that is they were available for people to come use them. And we also have what we call virtual court navigators. These are non-attorneys that we have put together training materials, and they are available and online on chat and by phone. So if somebody has a problem using a kiosk, they can just call in. Next slide. April 26th, 2023. So less than a year ago, we had our virtual court kiosk launch event. That's a picture from it. From left to right, that's Miss Betty Bailey Torres, the executive director of Texas Access to Justice Foundation. Then that's Texas Supreme Court Justice Busby, do it the big scissors, and my executive director, Ms. Karen Miller. And I've done a bunch of projects, but I've never actually had a ribbon cutting before this. And if you ever get a chance to do a ribbon cutting, highly recommend 10 out of 10, no notes. By June of 2023, we had the final virtual court kiosk installed. The last one got installed at the R.C. Miller Memorial Library in Beaumont, Texas. And then from June to October, it was getting all those virtual court kiosks online and available because we have 25 kiosks. We have 20 that are open to the general public and 5 that we call private sites that are for domestic violence shelters and their clients. And one of the things I'm going to cover a little bit in the breakout session, but if you do want to base these at anything that's like a government or a government site, so in particular like city government, just make sure to give yourself a lot of time from installation to implementation, because there's a lot of IT rules and procedures you have to go through to actually get that connection at city government and state government. At least that's been our experience. Phase 2 of the project was from May of 2023 to October of 2023. Phase 2 was all about, okay, we got the kiosk out there, they're online, let's make them better. So we did an accessibility audit with a firm called Knowability. They were recommended by Disability Rights Texas, which is the preeminent disability rights legal aid in Texas. We also did a kiosk support site. So A2J has a support site already, but we wanted to have one just specifically for Texas. So we got that done. We have an entire suite of videos that can tell people from how to use the kiosk to how to present your evidence in a virtual hearing, how to question your witness in a virtual hearing, how to do a cross-examination in a virtual hearing. And we also did a complete outreach study, because joined with this project, we actually got some funding for attorneys to write an entire suite of information on virtual court, and that's actually on Texas Law Help. And that information has actually gotten over 150,000 views. 150,000 views, yeah. So phase 3 is October 2023 to the present. Right now, we got them out there. We got a bunch of new capabilities for it. We have 2 main focuses right now. We're focused on outreach so that they get used as much as possible. And we are also focused on making some limited changes to the interface to increase the ways a kiosk can be used. Because one of the things that we're learning through this process is your use cases, and something I'll talk about in my outreach breakout session. Your use cases, the ways the kiosk can be used, are going to drive your outreach and drive the overall use. So we are trying to give users as many ways as possible to use a kiosk. So for instance, one of the things that we're pretty deep into working on with the Texas State Law Library is they have some wonderful, and I do mean wonderful, remote legal research resources. And that's so crucial because in Texas, if you cross, so I'm from New Orleans originally. I was born in New Orleans, and we moved to Houston when I was in middle school. And I just remember when we moved to Houston, we were driving into Texas for the first time. There's a sign when you cross the border from Louisiana to Texas that says El Paso, 854 miles. So Texas is huge. So all that means is that, you could be in an area of Texas where there's not a law library within 150-mile radius. So one of the things we want these kiosks to be used for is to access these free legal research resources so that even beyond Texas Law Help, you can go look at a Texas Family Law Practice Manual. And that's what attorneys use to put together pleadings sometimes. So we want it to be, a legal research center, a center to get free legal advice. We have a service on Texas Law Help where people can get free legal advice from licensed attorneys. We've been doing that since 2010. We want it to be a place where you can file your forms. We're actually developing a part of the interface to make it a little bit clearer of how to file your form. What we're looking at these kiosks is a physical way to sort of physical and figuratively wrap people in services so that when you go to that kiosk, you're going to get everything we got. And it's going to be ordered in such a way that it's easy to understand. It's not going to make you more confused. And I think that's one more slide, I think. And I think that's all for me. And I'm just looking forward to the breakout groups. Thank y'all for having me.
Thank you, Elliot. So as I mentioned before, we're gonna do breakout groups. So now we're gonna, go ahead and claim your spot in the rooms. I believe if you wanna follow Ariel to work on your pre-planning worksheet, I highly encourage you to follow her. She's gonna be on this right-hand side to you guys. So the front right-hand side of the room. And Dora, you wanna handle the back?
Ooh, little
sorry.
feedback. Where's that coming from?
Do you wanna try this?
Hello. Okay, we'll try this one. Hi. Okay, so Rural Access Justice Solutions. We're gonna be in the back sort of quadrant there. And if I think maybe just to make it a more conducive conversation setting, we'll try and pull the chairs around in a circle. So I'm gonna head back there.
Right, awesome. And for those of you who want to hear more about marketing and outreach with Elliot, Aaron, do you mind raising your hand? Aaron is in the Zoom room with Elliot, and he will be presenting through his laptop right there. And for those of you who are new to Legal Kiosk and want to play around with one, I have one set up right there, and that's where I'll be going, out in the back room right there. And so we'll be back in about almost 12 minutes, so we can do Q&A for the last 10 minutes of our session.